The LA Federation, for instance, just has like a pie chart that says, the future of the Jewish community, 65%, and like all of these very like obscure Jewish education, like 30%, all these things that are not entirely so clear. And then when you actually click one of those things, it just goes coming soon. So the fight for transparency is different based on where we are. I think that where J Street U currently is right now is that we're developing relationships with a lot of different Federation leaders, in moving them to also understand that we are pro-Israel and we're doing this out of deep concern for Israeli security. But yeah.
Sure.
Amna, could you talk a bit about the campaign to bring the green line back to maps? You alluded to it, but I'm not sure if they understand exactly what.
Yeah, totally. So something that J Street as an organization has been talking a lot about is bringing green lines back on maps that exist in synagogues or in hillels or in different communal buildings. Something that part of the reason it's so easy for so many in the establishment to kind of erase Palestinians, especially in moments like this also, is because most people grow up not really having always a consciousness of what exactly the conflict is, who Palestinians are, and there's a lot of stories I've heard from like friends in day school where they went for the most of their lives so far without actually ever being explained to what a Palestinian was, even in the context of Israel classes. And so part of having green lines on maps is starting to bring that consciousness back into like, what does the situation on the ground actually look like? Ariel is not like Tel Aviv. And there are many J Street U students at campuses across the country who are starting to push for their hillels to put green lines on their maps. The University of Maryland is also thinking about this, for instance. And so putting the green lines on maps and asking for leaders to start, reinstating that.
Yeah, I make it clear that we're not just asking people to take a magic marker and draw a green line on the map.
Right.
To take down the old green line-less maps and replace them with a map that very clearly delineates both the West Bank and Gaza.
Right.
So that people, when they look at the map, will recognize that it's not just one big undivided territory, but there really are two entities there like that.
Exactly. There are two peoples. So many maps that are currently up in the buildings only show, river to sea, greater Israel. And so we're actually asking for maps. J Street has great maps that have green lines on them that delineate the West Bank and Gaza and actually show where Palestinian people are.
I have another question. So with the third narrative, we are organizing, groups of academics that can work with progressive constituencies and students. So what kind of, how can partnerships with professors augment the work that you're doing, and what else do you need from professors that you don't have right now?
I think professors are a great constituency on university campuses and also in the community of people that have relationships in the community, have experience with this issue in the community, and can provide a lot of guidance and kind of create an environment for students to engage with the conflict really meaningfully. The Israel Studies at the department at the University of Maryland has, deeply shaped the way I interact with this conflict and taught me a lot about the conflict. And so I think that that's hugely important in the work that we do. I also think that professors, Paul Sham is involved with the third narrative, and Amenu in a lot of these organizations, and I think that professors also have a lot of relationships that can help students enter more deeply also into activism on this issue.
I didn't know until an earlier session that you are a resident of Maryland of parents of Pakistani descent. And in an earlier session, there was mention of a book in publication about these three different events that took place in Israel, in India, Pakistan, and in Algeria, and a comparison of it. So it begs the question, and please don't take offense, why is a nice Pakistani girl like you interested in this conflict? And are you also interested in the Indian-Pakistani conflict? Is that something that resonates for you?
Certainly the Indian-Pakistani conflict is one that I have, roots with, and so certainly deeply resonates with me. I think that it's not as bad as it was and that the political situation is not one that is like Israel, the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, in which you have like a state and a non-state entity like engaged in more of a conflict. And so, I mean, the reason that I do this work specifically, growing up, Muslim after 9/11 in America, I was very, very interested in national security, very, very interested in the Middle East, and very, very interested in how we could make America a safer place, but also the Middle East a safer place. And this was an issue that always came up time and time again, the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. It doesn't matter which conflict in the Middle East you look at, the Israeli-Palestinian conflict is in some way related to it. And so that was something that I found, one, personally interesting, also because I had Jewish friends growing up who had relationships to Israel and were deeply invested in this issue also. And so that was my kind of personal angle. And then also it felt to me like I had a responsibility as an American, as someone who had Jewish friends and also had a connection to this issue, just because of my religion, that I'd be productive in this way. And so when I got to college, I started going to Hillel, I started getting involved in Israel studies, and I wanted to learn more and do more. But that is why this issue, because I do think this issue is very important for Israel's security, for Palestine's security, for also US national security. And I think it is something that we're seeing, if it's not resolved soon, or steps aren't taken to resolve it soon, there will be consequences in the Middle East, but also in the world.
I'm humbled and grateful that you care.
Oh, thank you.
I'm very closely involved with virtually a step-parent of a young girl who goes to Sullivan Schechter High School. And what I get from her and from her mother is they don't have a sense of the green line there. And I'm wondering whether J Street U has chapters with Jewish Theological Seminary, with Hebrew Union College, Lahavdil, Yeshiva University, they're the academic guides for their denominational schools. And do you have any people who are trying to knock on their door and say, what are your maps like?
Oh, so I'll just answer really briefly. We don't have chapters at Yeshiva University and at what was the other school you mentioned? So I think we do have a chapter at JTS. I believe we don't have a chapter at Hebrew Union College or at Yeshiva University, but we have students there who are J Street U students and interested. In terms of like what our communal strategy more largely is, I think Rachel Lerner can speak a little bit more to that.
Just two things. One is that J Street. Hi, I'm Rachel Lerner. And I'm on staff at J Street, and J Street U is primarily active with undergrads. J Street has a rabbinic cabinet though, and we do organizing and engagement in the, really not, Yeshiva University has not been our bread and butter, but in a conservative and reform theological seminaries. And that is a place where that we are engaging, and where we frankly have found a lot of receptivity, and our rabbinic cabinet includes rabbinic students. And so this is an area where we've engaged, and we will continue to engage and talk to them about sort of their Israel maps as well.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Rachel.
Any other questions? Go ahead, Dan.
We've talked a lot here, and a lot of the third narrative is connected with answering the far left. How much energy is the average chapter devoted to actually doing that, as opposed to dealing with, you talked about the Jewish establishment, but also supporters of the status quo? I mean, it's a little bit, I am actually asking out of total ignorance. How much energy is devoted to each extreme?
Yeah. It's a great question. It actually very much varies. The school I go to, the University of Maryland, has a very, very large Hillel, a very large Jewish population, has a lot of students who identify as pro-Israel, and a very, very small Students for Justice in Palestine chapter. And so because of that, we hardly devote any energy to dealing with the far left. There's a student from Vassar College here who I could probably tell you spends most of her time in her day thinking about how to respond to the far left and how to do this work on a campus that's very far left. So, I think J Street U as a move, so to answer your question, it really does vary based on the campus. Small liberal arts schools tends to have more of a far left presence. Large schools with large Jewish populations tend to have more of a establishment presence. J Street U as a movement thinks mostly about the American Jewish community and the American Jewish establishment because that's where we believe that the most support for the occupation on campus is currently coming from. And so that's why we choose to, the best way to actually break the status quo or to start working to break the status quo is to operate inside the community and actually build relationships with people and make them see why we believe two states is the answer to the work we do. But does that answer your question? I can also go more into detail if,
Okay, with that, can we have a round of applause for Amna?
So I'd also like to thank Amna for participating, for coming, and for speaking with us. I think that there is a great deal that the Third Narrative and the Third Narrative academic work can do in conjunction with J Street U, and it's something that we look forward to working on with you in the months and years to come. I want to thank everyone for coming again. To encourage people, if you haven't checked out the Third Narrative, www.thirdnarrative.org and the Third Narrative Facebook page, we are seeking to encourage people to engage in dialogue on the array of questions we've spoken about today, and we'll be continuing to post new materials like the materials in the meeting packet on the Third Narrative site. We also encourage people who are academics to check it out. It may be of interest to you and to other faculty and scholars that you're involved with. And finally, that we hope that this is a place where we can continue moving the dialogue on the future of peace, of reconciliation, of human rights for Israelis and Palestinians, and we look forward to seeing everyone here again very soon.
Also, just a quick thank you to Josh, who really put this together in a really big way. So.